Hello and welcome to my cruise pod. I'm Melissa, a university professor who loves to cruise and who loves to talk ship. Today we're going to talk about the most essential cruise apps that will make your cruise even more epic. So let's get right into it. Let's start off with one that is my favorite of them all, Shipmate. It's a free app and it's an all-in-one app designed specifically for cruise lovers. It allows you to track and plan your cruise. It gives you a forum to connect with other passengers before you even step on the ship. And you can use Shipmate before you book to check out reviews of certain ships and itineraries, read information about ports, and even browse photos from other travelers. Now, there are a few other features I really like about Shipmate. One is the countdown timer. There's nothing more motivating when you're slogging away at work than to see those days tick down on your timer until your next cruise. You can also view your ship's deck plans and itineraries, which is super helpful in getting oriented with the ship before you board. I can't tell you how many times I've had a cruise booked and I need to consult the itinerary to see what day I'm going to be in a specific port. And it's so much easier and user-friendly to look it up on my Shipmate app versus looking it up on the cruise line website or app. Isn't that crazy? Another perk is that Shipmate has access to reviews of shore excursions, so you can get some honest feedback before you invest your money in an excursion and end up in a bad one. If you like being prepared, or you like being connected, Shipmate is a must-have app. My personal favorite use of it, though, it sounds super basic, but it does this really well. And that is to use it for tracking purposes. I obviously cruise a lot, at least once a month on average, and I sometimes forget the specifics of a past cruise. And I often want to go back and check and find that information easily. Or I'll forget a ship that I've sailed and I need to go back and find it easily. And I know this sounds ridiculous, but I often have several cruises booked in the future, and sometimes they start to blend together and I get them a little mixed up. So Shipmate is great for me, and this is why I love it so much, in keeping all of my cruises, current, future, and past, all super organized and in one place. My next recommendation is Cruise Critic. They have an app, but they also have a website. I generally use the website more often than the app, but they're both great. If you're someone like me who likes to do research and to read reviews and get all kinds of details before making decisions, Cruise Critic is a great option. By the way, shameless plug, my own blog, profmelissa.com. I have free port guides with my reviews and recommendations for all of the common cruise ports. But what Cruise Critic is great for is they have message boards and forums where cruisers congregate and share their honest feedback. So it's really great for that. Cruise Critic is one of the largest online cruise communities, and that app brings all that information to your phone. As I mentioned, you can read all kinds of reviews from other cruisers, and that's not just cruise lines in general, but specific ships, because we know they're not all made equal. Different itineraries and excursions. There's even a section where users can post reviews of ports and what to do there. So in addition to my blog, it's a great way to stay organized and to make decisions and to avoid wasting your money. Another great feature is, like Shipmate, they have forums where you can connect with other cruisers who are going to be on your sailing. It's a really great way to get to know and make friends before you even step foot on the ship. So if you like a deep dive into reviews, feedback from other cruisers, and that kind of stuff, then Cruise Critic is a great app to download. Now let's talk about Cruise Mapper. This is a super interesting app, quite a bit different than the other two. And this is great for people who want to know where their ship is and other ships are at all times. If you fly a lot, it's like Flight Aware, where you can track different airplanes, but this is your cruise ship version. So what does Cruise Mapper do? Essentially, like I mentioned, it's a ship tracker. It allows you to see in real time locations of cruise ships all around the world. So even if you're not taking a cruise and you're just a cruise enthusiast and you want to see where all the ships in the world are, this is a great one for you. You can also look and see where your own ship is when you're out to sea, and you can also track your loved ones when they're out to sea as well. The app provides detailed maps that shows you the exact location of any ship at any given time. And that's not all. It also shows you the other ships that will be in port on the same day as your cruise. So why the heck would you care about that? Well, it can be really helpful because knowing how many ships are going to be docked at your port destination on the same day gives you an idea of how crowded the port might be. If there are 4 or 5 ships in port, for example, you might want to plan for other things to do. You might not want to walk around because you know the port's going to be really busy. Or maybe you know that you want to book your excursions in advance because your chance of being able to just roll up and book something on site is pretty limited. On the flip side, if you look and check and you see that your ship is the only one in town, you know you'll have much more freedom to explore without the crowds, and there's probably better pricing and availability for excursions. Plus, it's just fun to track where the ships are. So Cruise Mapper is a great app for anyone who likes to stay on the know during their own cruise or to track the cruises of someone they love. The Weather app. Now, you can't plan a perfect cruise without knowing the weather conditions for your ports of call. And this is where having the Weather app comes in handy. Now, there are a ton of different weather apps out there. Everyone has their favorite. There's AccuWeather, there's the Weather Channel. They all kind of do the same thing. I personally don't love any one more than any others, but the Weather Channel app is a good, reliable standby. It gives you detailed forecasts for your cruise itinerary and can be helpful because if you see that there's predicted weather that's going to be poor, you might want to be flexible and change your plans. And doing that in advance is more advantageous than waiting until the day of. Knowing the forecast also allows you to pack more efficiently. You can decide on what excursions might work best, and you can even plan your outfits around the weather forecast. Let's say you have a beach day planned, but the forecast shows rain. And that's not uncommon. It rains in the Caribbean like every day, but if this shows heavy all-day rain, you might want to have a plan B in place, so you're not going to ruin an entire day if that does happen and it pours the rain all day. Knowing the weather is key to having a smooth cruise, so having a reliable weather app on your phone before you sail, because once you're on a cruise ship, it's really hard to download apps even if you buy the Wi-Fi package, so having that in advance is really beneficial. Now let's talk about your cruise line's official app. This sounds like a no-brainer, but I cannot tell you how many times I've sailed with people and I've said, oh, you've got the cruise line app, right? And they're like, no, I don't. Okay, it happens. Doesn't matter what cruise line you're sailing with, they all have their own custom app, and that is perfect for your cruise experience. It's really important that you have your cruise line app before the cruise. One, because they're essential to use on the cruise. A lot of cruise lines now no longer print those paper itineraries or agendas of what to expect that day every day. A lot of them, to save money and be environmentally friendly, have pivoted to just the app. So if you want to know what's going on the ship, you got to have the app. Also, if you didn't buy the cruise ship Wi-Fi package, once you set sail, you sailed away, you're out to sea, you're disconnected, you're not going to be able to download the cruise line app. So make sure you have that in advance. I'll give you one example. The Carnival Hub app, that's your go-to app for everything happening on board. You have to use it basically to check the day's activities. You can view restaurant menus. You can even check in for meals in the main dining room without having to wait. I always like to check in my stateroom and then it'll notify me and then I go down to the main dining room. It saves me a lot of time waiting in line. It's also the way that you message other cruisers if you use the app's onboard messaging system. Some cruise lines offer this for free. Carnival does charge a $5 per person fee to use their messaging system. It's also pretty glitchy. You get the gist of it. The Hub app and the app for any cruise line is really important to maintaining everything cruise related. It's also where you'll find your account charges. So every charge that you've made on the ship will be reflected on there. If you plan the casino, it'll show you your casino points. It'll give you a deck plan so you can navigate the ship. It does everything. And last but not least, this one might surprise you, is Facebook. So why do you need Facebook to cruise? Well, you don't have to have it, but I will tell you, as a seasoned cruiser who's plugged into all platforms, Facebook is my #1 go-to for cruise information when I am on an actual cruise. Before you go on a cruise, go to Facebook and find your cruise specific group. These are not anything that are officially sanctioned or managed or run or initiated by the cruise lines, but rather these are just random individual cruisers who are on your sailing who take the initiative to form a Facebook group. They do this as a volunteer just to create that sense of community. And you obviously need the Facebook app in order to be able to access it. In these Facebook groups, it's great because you can get information about your sailing. Often cruise lines, for example, they're not great about communicating who the cruise director is or what the different theme parties are, so you don't know how to pack or plan. Or sometimes you're not sure where your terminal is when you come up to the cruise port on embarkation day. These are all common questions and discussions that I see in the cruise-specific Facebook groups, so it's a really great source of information. It's also a great way to make virtual friends and you get familiar faces, so then when you're on the ship, you're like, hey, I recognize you from the Facebook group. And it's a great way to be social. So here's how it works. Usually when people set up these groups, they put it as the name of the ship and the sailing date. So my next cruise is going to be on Carnival Mardi Gras on October 12th. So I will search on Facebook for Carnival Mardi Gras October 12th through 19th of 2024. That allows me to find my sailing. Sometimes you'll have duplicate groups because there's no policing of this and there's just people making these groups, but usually there's just one. Find the group, join it, and that's a great place to build a community, ask questions, share tips, plan meetups. They'll do shot glass exchanges or gift exchanges or duck exchanges. They're really fun ways to communicate with the other people who are going to be on your sailing. They've also been really helpful in case of emergencies. I've had many times where I've been on a cruise and I've heard those code Alpha, 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 or code Bravo. And cruise lines don't want you to know what those codes mean, but you know they're emergency codes and you know something's going down. And you want to know what's happening on your cruise ship. Well, usually the people on the Facebook groups are in the know, and if people see something, they'll say something, and that just helps you stay aware as a cruiser. Just remember though, as I mentioned, these groups, they're not officially managed by the cruise lines. They're created by individual users. Sometimes people can be dramatic and there's fights, and within the group, it's Facebook after all. But still, by and large, they are a really fun and helpful way to get insider tips and make connections before you ever step foot on the ship. And there you have it, the essential cruise apps every cruiser needs. I want to know, what did I miss? What are your favorite cruise apps? Be sure to drop that down in the comments. And while you're at it, be sure to like and subscribe. And don't forget, I always have a wealth of information, free resources, including port guides on my blog at profmelissa.com.